For nearly a decade, Lufthansa ignored the Airbus A350-1000. The aircraft was built to crush Boeing's 777-300ER, traveling further while also being more efficient. British Airways bought it, Qatar bought it, Cathay bought it, but Lufthansa, one of Europe's biggest long-haul operators, not a single order. Then, out of nowhere, in 2023, they bought 10. In December 2024, another 5. So, what changed? The answer isn't about stubbornness, it's about how one of the smartest airlines in Europe got forced into a corner. So, how did we get here? We first need to talk about the A350-1000's smaller sibling, the A350-900. This plane is Lufthansa's versatile long-haul workhorse that has been in operation since 2017 on routes from Germany to Hong Kong, Los Angeles, and Sao Paulo. It seats anywhere from 293 passengers to 318 passengers, and it has an 8,500 nautical mile range. Now, the A350-1000 stretches that formula at around 7 meters longer. The 1000 variant typically seats 375 to 400 passengers with an extended range up to 9,000 nautical miles. The stretch is an amazing strategy. Airbus positioned it as the 777-300ER killer, while also preparing for Boeing's upcoming 777X. Major operators lined up. Qatar Airways became the launch customer. British Airways placed substantial orders. Cathay Pacific jumped in early, all betting this aircraft would dominate long-haul routes. But Lufthansa, they kept ordering more A350-900s instead. They placed their massive bet elsewhere entirely. Here's what makes their resistance so confusing. Lufthansa operates massive global hubs. Frankfurt handles over 61 million passengers annually. Munich serves as the carrier's secondary powerhouse. These aren't just airports, they're connection machines feeding passengers to every continent. Lufthansa's network screamed A350-1000. Heavy long-haul traffic to Asia, with daily flights to Tokyo, Seoul, Hong Kong, and Shanghai. Massive North American operations serving New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Toronto, and more. Routes stretching to South America, Africa, and the Middle East. These high-demand, long-haul routes are exactly where the A350-1000's combination of around 380 seats and 9,000 nautical mile range should dominate. More seats means more revenue per flight. That range covers virtually anywhere their passengers want to go, non-stop. And here's the obvious part. It already operated the A350-900. Lufthansa's pilots were trained on the systems. The airline's maintenance crews knew the aircraft. Its operations teams understood the performance characteristics. Adding the A350-1000, it should have been the easiest decision in aviation. Same cockpit, same procedures, just more seats and slightly longer range. So, why didn't Lufthansa pull the trigger for nearly a decade? The answer reveals 4 strategic calculations that separate sophisticated airline fleet planning from obvious decisions. Now, first, let's talk about the overlap issue. While the A350-1000 was bigger than the 900, it wasn't enough to matter for Lufthansa's long-term vision. The 900 seats around 315 passengers, the 1000 seats around 380. That's only about 60 to 70 more seats. For an airline thinking in fleet blocks and route optimization, that's uncomfortably close. You end up with 2 aircraft serving similar missions, but requiring different operational procedures. Slight difference, but a difference nonetheless. The capacity gain wasn't transformational enough to justify the operational complexity. Secondly, Lufthansa had already made their bet. September 2013, Lufthansa became the launch customer for the Boeing 777-9, initially ordering 34 aircraft. This wasn't just an aircraft purchase, it was the airline's vision for the future of long-haul aviation. The 777-9 promised something the A350-1000 simply couldn't deliver: true quantum leap capacity. We're talking about an aircraft that could seat around 400 passengers with the range to fly non-stop from Frankfurt to virtually anywhere in the world. For Lufthansa's highest density routes during peak seasons, this represented revolutionary efficiency and a solid replacement for their 747-8 fleet when the time comes. Now, let's talk about politics for just a second. This might sound cynical, but it's airline reality. Lufthansa deliberately maintains balanced relationships with both Airbus and Boeing. It's not just about getting the best aircraft, it's about preserving negotiating leverage that can save hundreds of millions over time. If you put all your orders with Airbus, you lose your ability to play Boeing against Airbus on pricing, delivery slots, and contract terms. By committing hard to the 777X. While continuing A350-900 orders, Lufthansa maintained that delicate supplier balance. Adding A350-1000s would have tilted the scales too far toward Airbus, reducing its leverage with Boeing at crucial negotiation moments. Now, let's talk about the commonality obsession. Airlines, well, they're fanatical about fleet simplification because it drives down costs across every operational dimension. But there are differences. Airport operations need slightly different loading procedures. Scheduling systems require different performance parameters. Lufthansa looked at this equation and concluded, why create another subfleet when we can wait for the 777X to handle high-capacity missions and keep using the A350-900 for everything else? Clean, simple, efficient. But here's where its strategy missed, and what would eventually force the airline to reverse course entirely. Lufthansa's 777X bet looked brilliant on paper. It was the launch customer for the 777-9, expecting first deliveries in 2020. Those folding wingtips, they weren't just engineering showmanship, they solved a real problem by allowing the massive aircraft to use standard airport gates despite its enormous wingspan. The 777-9 represented Lufthansa's vision of the future: fewer aircraft types, maximum efficiency, and revolutionary passenger capacity on its most important routes. But revolutionary technology, it comes with revolutionary risk. First deliveries, they're now expected in 2026, 6 years behind the original schedule. Some industry observers think even 2026 might be optimistic. The delays weren't just inconvenient, they shattered Lufthansa's entire capacity planning strategy, especially when taking into account aging 747 and A340 fleets. As those delays mounted, something interesting started happening. The A350-1000 began proving itself brilliantly in real-world operations. British Airways reported excellent performance on demanding routes like London Heathrow to Los Angeles. Qatar Airways found the aircraft perfect for its hub strategy. The promised fuel savings were materializing in airline financial reports. But perhaps most painfully for Lufthansa, the A350-1000 was available. Delivery slots were opening up, while the 777X's availability, that remained a constant moving target. As 777X delays mounted, Lufthansa faced an uncomfortable operational reality. Their strategy of waiting for the revolutionary aircraft while relying on A350-900s for growth was creating serious gaps in its network capacity. The airline had to make a move. Lufthansa reactivated up to 8 Airbus A380 aircraft, planes it had planned to retire permanently just to maintain capacity on its highest demand routes. They kept fuel-hungry A340-300s and A340-600s in service years longer than planned, burning more fuel and offering less passenger comfort than their competitors. Even worse, they extended the operational life of some 747-400 aircraft that should have been replaced by the 777X years ago. These aircraft burn significantly more fuel per passenger than modern alternatives and offer inferior passenger experiences on competitive international routes. Meanwhile, Lufthansa's competitors weren't standing still, especially when it came to cabin experience. British Airways offered their club suite from day one of their A350s. Qatar Airways also offers their famous Q Suite product on select A350s. Lufthansa, on the other hand, a botched Allegris rollout means they offer a very subpar business class product on most of their long-haul fleet, not even offering direct aisle access. In the hub-and-spoke world of international aviation, things like this matter a lot. Now, with their 777X order, Lufthansa couldn't afford to fall behind while waiting for Boeing to solve engineering and certification problems that seemed to multiply rather than diminish. But here's what made their solution truly urgent. Post-COVID travel recovery accelerated faster than anyone predicted. Lufthansa found itself with demand they couldn't efficiently serve. The question became critical. Would a small A350-1000 fleet have been smarter insurance against exactly this scenario? March 2023, Lufthansa finally admitted its strategy needed adjustment. It ordered 10 A350-1000s, followed by 5 more in December 2024. This wasn't defeat, it was sophisticated risk management finally kicking in. The A350-1000 order served multiple strategic purposes: operational flexibility to optimize their network while waiting for Boeing to solve its problems, and crucially, it maintained its relationship balance with Airbus without abandoning its Boeing commitments. Most importantly, this was insurance. If 777X delays continued, and they have, Lufthansa wouldn't be scrambling for capacity using retired aircraft and emergency reactivations. But here's the genius of the carrier's timing. Lufthansa's order timing provided negotiating advantages. They secured favorable pricing and delivery slots between 2026 and 2030, giving them flexibility to right-size its fleet as market conditions evolved. Remember Lufthansa's original resistance based on fleet complexity concerns? Market reality forced a recalculation. The gap between the A350-900's 315 seats and the 777X's 400-plus seats proved too large for optimal route planning. And here's what Lufthansa always knew but finally admitted: the commonality benefits were more valuable than the complexity costs. Pilots qualified on the A350-900 can fly the 1000 with minimal additional training. Maintenance crews can service both aircraft with largely the same expertise and spare parts inventory. The operational synergies it always had access to finally became too valuable to ignore. So, here's the fascinating insight from Lufthansa's A350-1000 saga and why the airline's initial resistance was actually more sophisticated than it appeared. What looked like a strategic mistake, passing on an obviously suitable aircraft, was actually disciplined fleet planning. Lufthansa correctly recognized that the A350-1000 wasn't different enough from the A350-900 to justify immediate adoption, given its long-term 777X strategy. Lufthansa preferred to wait for the 777X to provide true fleet differentiation and quantum leap capacity improvements. Its original vision was clean, logical, and operationally efficient, but when Boeing's repeated delays threatened the airline's entire capacity strategy, it adapted intelligently. The A350-1000 transformed from an unnecessary overlap into essential insurance against delivery disruptions. The real genius of its eventual decision was strategic timing. Rather than panic buying A350-1000s when 777X delays first became apparent, Lufthansa waited until they could negotiate favorable terms and secure delivery slots that aligned with their actual operational needs.